Nearly 250 years after breaking away from the British Crown, Donald Trump says he's open to joining the Commonwealth under King Charles himself. Reports claim the King is preparing to offer the US associate membership during Trump's next UK visit, with Trump responding, "I love King Charles, sounds good to me." But the idea is already raising some eyebrows across the US, as it would shift diplomatic norms and stir tensions with Canada, one of the Commonwealth's founding members. For more, we're joined by Sultan from Sultan Interactive Group. Would you like to be a member of the Commonwealth?
You know, it's not a bad idea in the face of the BRICS right now, and I think that's the big game here that's afoot.
So, right, but the idea then would be that the UK would have some sort of leadership in all of this. The US has been the leader of the free world. Would it be some sort of paradigm shift there?
So the associate membership would tie us into a couple of things. Number one, it would give us shared legal frameworks, which would be interesting to see how that plays out in line with the crypto legislation that we're advancing in the US to kind of become a market leader. It would be interesting in terms of how that would impact international corporate mergers, because we would at least have some of the Commonwealth framework. Hopefully it doesn't mean that attorneys in America have to start wearing wigs, which I don't think it would. But the long term of this, I think, is the opportunity to look at a pushback against the BRIC countries that are talking about their own sovereign currency to replace the dollar. And it opens the door for an opportunity for a more meaningful conversation around crypto. Because as we've seen in the past couple of years, England's mounting its own sort of either stable coin or central bank digital currency. America is going to have a mix of them that we're using for international cross-border settlements. So I think there's a lot of financial opportunity here. The regulatory piece is still a little bit nebulous, but I do think that this would tie the Federal Reserve with the Crown in ways that we never even thought possible.
So basically what you're saying is you want Meghan Markle and Prince Harry to become the Governor General of the United States there.
Meghan Markle and Prince Harry could become the Governor General of some small island territory that we have, but that's about as far as I
It's
think
interesting
we would
because
go with that.
when Queen Elizabeth II was alive, there was a fear that the Commonwealth would disband with her passing. But now the United States is actually talking about joining. Is there even such a thing as associate membership? What's that all about?
There is, you have the former countries of the Crown, which are, like yourself, Australia, that are primary members of this. The associate membership ties us into the financial things and some of the regulatory structures of the Commonwealth, but it's not going to put us under Crown jurisdiction per se. A lot of this still has to be ironed out. I had an interesting conversation with my colleagues over at Steptoe in Washington, D.C. This is touching on law that we really haven't looked at in probably over 100 years. So the way that this builds forward, I think, will be more financial to start, regulatory in terms of frameworks, and then what comes of that is to be seen.
Very much so. I mean, we've got the Five Eyes, right, from a security perspective, and the US is the outlier there. So you've got Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the UK, and then the United States. Your idea about BRICS, essentially, which is the emerging economies, Russia and China and Brazil's in there, South Africa surprisingly is in there, India surprisingly is in there as well. Do you see this as an idea of, just getting back to your original point, that the Commonwealth would be expanding to step up, almost allies and axes, if you will? And why might King Charles want the US involved in the Commonwealth?
Well, I think it becomes a financial game, right? If you look overall at England, the manufacturing of Indian food is larger than shipbuilding, metalworking, and a variety of additional industries combined. So there's a lot that's gone away from what Britain's power was into service economies. At the same point in time, the standardization that Britain has with all of the former colonies plus a number of territories, I believe there's 22 countries in the Commonwealth, allows for some standardized trading partnerships. It also allows for free commerce flow in ways that, are a little asymmetric with the United States. So what we have here is probably kind of a one-two punch. The first piece of this is standardizing some financial flows so that we've got more regulatory guidelines for acquisitions, for mergers, and really for cross-border trade. The second piece of this, I think, is that we're not really entering into like wartime scenarios yet, from any aspect, whether you consider Russia or China or anyone like that. But it is financial warfare, and that financial warfare has been going on easily since before 2010. So by doing this, it buffers us against what Russia would want to do with crypto and what the BRICS would want to do overall, and puts the dollar back inside of a negotiating point for all sorts of international trade.
All right, that's the argument for it. How serious do you think Trump is about accepting the offer?
Oh, I think he's going to accept it. I think 100% he's going to accept it, but he's obviously going to have a bunch of Trump caveats on it. And we may have a little bit more of this telenovela, drama going back and forth in the negotiations on it. But it basically puts the BRICS on notice.
And what impact would it have on US-Canada relations, which are at a pretty frosty point right now?
So that's a really funny one, right? We're putting up this Golden Dome. The Golden Dome is a much bigger version of what the American defense industry built for Israel with their Iron Dome. And Canada is like, well, why are we being left out of this? They were offered a free Iron Dome if they become our 51st state. So I think that there is some back channel negotiation going on here. I don't know how serious that is, but I do know that the offer is on the table. So we may be looking at, a reshaping of not just global trade, but potentially global borders inside of the coming year.
And how do you think it will change America's diplomatic status with the UK? Because just because Australia is a member of the Commonwealth doesn't necessarily mean that trade agreements happen. As soon as the UK, of course, joined the EU, Australia was left on the outer. The UK has a history of doing funny things.
It puts us kind of, I think, in an equal negotiating standpoint with the UK, because our economy is roughly the size of the EU, a bit bigger. We have a tremendous amount of say, I think, in terms of what builds forward. It may be America starts, building some of the policy frameworks with the UK, but I think that we would be more in a position to dictate than we would be in taking a backseat the way that they treated Australia.
All right, we'll leave it there. Sultan, appreciate your time, and hopefully welcome to the Commonwealth. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.